Kathy Jarrett had been called many things: worthless, broken, defective, a stain on her bloodline. Her pack had cast her out into the frozen wilderness 3 years ago, expecting her to die quietly and fade from memory. They were wrong. She didn't die.
She survived.
Alone. Invisible. Forgotten. But survival has a strange way of revealing destiny. And destiny? It showed up at her cabin door in the form of a starving wolf pup with silver-tipped fur and eyes too intelligent to be ordinary. For months, she fed him, sheltered him, and loved him, never knowing she was protecting the most dangerous secret in the wolf kingdom. Because that pup? He wasn't just any wolf. He was Riker Peterson, the kidnapped heir of Alpha King Paul Peterson, ruler of the Shadowpine Dominion and the most feared wolf in the Northern Territories. And when the Alpha King came to collect what was his, he didn't arrive alone. 5 massive black wolves emerged from the mist, their eyes glowing like embers in the twilight. Behind them stood Paul Peterson himself, 6 feet 5 inches of raw power, cold fury, and absolute authority. Kathy thought she was saving a lost pup. She had no idea she was about to become the most dangerous woman in the kingdom. Because the wolfless Omega everyone rejected? She was never broken. She was dormant. And when her power finally woke up, it would rewrite the fate of every wolf who ever doubted her. What happens when the Alpha King realizes the defective Omega saved his son? Will he see her as a hero or a threat? And what secret is buried so deep inside Kathy that even she doesn't know it exists? If you want to find out what happens when 5 wolves, an Alpha King, and a hidden destiny collide, subscribe now because this story is about to get absolutely unhinged. You won't believe what Kathy is truly capable of, and neither will the Alpha King. Kathy Jarrett is a ghost. Not literally, but socially, emotionally, and physically. She exists in the forgotten corners of the Pinehaven territories, living in a dilapidated cabin her grandfather abandoned decades ago. The structure leans slightly to the left, the roof leaks during heavy rain, and the windows rattle whenever the wind picks up. But it's hers.
The only thing that ever has been.
3 years ago, her pack rejected her during what should have been her awakening ceremony, the sacred ritual where every wolf experiences their first shift at 18. Kathy stood in the ceremonial circle surrounded by torches, pack elders, and her family. She waited.
She prayed.
She begged the moon goddess for something, anything. Nothing came.
No sift.
No wolf. No power. The pack beta, her own uncle, declared her dormant.
Defective.
A genetic dead end. Her parents looked away in shame. Her younger sister whispered apologies. And the alpha, Garrett Thorne, exiled her with a single sentence: a wolfless Omega has no place in this pack. Leave before sunrise or we'll make you. She left. For 3 years, Kathy survived by trapping rabbits, gathering wild herbs, and selling firewood to traveling merchants who didn't ask questions. She learned to be invisible. She learned to expect nothing. She learned that loneliness could be a companion if you stopped fighting it. But loneliness wasn't the only thing keeping her company. It happens on the coldest night of winter. A blizzard sweeps through the Northern Territories, the kind that kills unprepared travelers and buries entire roads under 6 feet of snow. Kathy sits by her fireplace, wrapped in 3 threadbare blankets, rationing the last of her dried venison. Then she hears it. A whimper. Faint. Desperate. Coming from just outside her door. At first, she thinks it's the wind playing tricks. But the sound comes again. A high-pitched, broken cry that pierces through the storm like a knife. Ash sits back on his haunches and tilts his head, and Kathy swears she sees amusement flicker in his golden eyes. Not animal curiosity. Amusement. A chill runs down her spine, but she shakes it off. He's just a smart pup. That's all. The weeks turn into months. Winter gives way to early spring. Kathy marks the passage of time by the wildflowers sprouting near her cabin and the return of birdsong in the mornings. Ash grows rapidly. His legs lengthen, his chest broadens, and his silver-tipped fur gleams like polished metal. He's no ordinary wolf pup. Kathy knows this. But she doesn't care. For the first time in 3 years, she's not alone. But everything changes on a foggy April morning when Kathy steps outside to hang laundry and freezes mid-step. There, standing at the edge of the clearing, are 5 massive black wolves. Their eyes glow like burning coals in the mist. Their bodies are built like war machines, broad shoulders, thick muscle, scars crisscrossing their pelts like battle maps. And the power radiating from them is suffocating, pressing against Kathy's chest like a physical weight. Her breath catches. Her hands tremble. Every instinct screams at her to run, but her legs won't move. Behind the wolves stands a man. No, not just a man. An alpha. Paul Peterson is everything Kathy has heard in whispered stories and more. He's tall, easily 6'5", with broad shoulders that strain against the black tactical vest he wears. His hair, the color of dark honey, is pulled back in a long braid that hangs past his shoulders. His eyes are pale gray, cold as winter ice, and utterly unreadable. A silver wolf insignia is stitched over his heart, and a long black coat billows behind him like a war banner.
He doesn't speak.
He just stares at her, his gaze sharp enough to cut glass. Then his eyes drop to Ash, who has stepped protectively in front of Kathy, his small body tense and his ears pinned back. The silver tips on his ears catch the sun, shimmering faintly. He's beautiful. And very much alive. "Hey there, little guy," Kathy whispers, brushing a finger along his head. The pup's eyes flutter open, those strange, intelligent gold eyes, and he yawns, revealing tiny needle-sharp teeth. Then he licks her hand. Kathy's chest tightens. She hasn't felt this kind of warmth in 3 years. Not since her family turned their backs on her. Not since she learned what it meant to be truly alone. "You're tougher than you look," she murmurs. The pup, Ash, tilts his head as if considering her words. Then he wriggles free from the blanket and hops down to the floor, sniffing around the cabin with curiosity. Kathy watches him explore, her lips twitching into a smile. He's so small, so fragile, yet there's something undeniably regal about the way he carries himself. His movements are precise, deliberate, like he's assessing his surroundings with the sharp focus of a strategist. Over the following days, Ash becomes her constant shadow. He follows her to the stream when she fetches water, his little paws crunching through the snow. He sits beside her when she chops firewood, his golden eyes tracking every swing of the axe. He curls up at her feet while she reads by candlelight, his soft breathing a comforting rhythm in the silence. Kathy tells herself not to get attached. Wolves don't stay. They're wild creatures, meant for the forest, for packs, for territories far beyond her broken-down cabin. But Ash doesn't seem to know that. He acts like he belongs here, like she's his pack. One evening, while Kathy prepares a rabbit stew, Ash does something that makes her freeze mid-stir. He drags a bundle of kindling toward the fireplace, piece by piece, and arranges it in a neat pile, as if he's trying to help her build up the fire. Kathy stares, spoon halfway to her mouth. Did he just organize firewood? She laughs nervously. "You're a weird little thing, aren't you?" Ash sits back on his haunches and tilts his head, and Kathy swears she sees amusement flicker in his golden eyes. Not animal curiosity. Amusement. A chill runs down her spine, but she shakes it off. He's just a smart pup. That's all. The weeks turn into months. Winter gives way to early spring. Kathy marks the passage of time by the wildflowers sprouting near her cabin and the return of birdsong in the mornings. Ash grows rapidly. His legs lengthen, his chest broadens, and his silver-tipped fur gleams like polished metal. He's no ordinary wolf pup. Kathy knows this. But she doesn't care. For the first time in 3 years, she's not alone. But everything changes on a foggy April morning when Kathy steps outside to hang laundry and freezes mid-step. There, standing at the edge of the clearing, are 5 massive black wolves. Their eyes glow like burning coals in the mist. Their bodies are built like war machines, broad shoulders, thick muscle, scars crisscrossing their pelts like battle maps. And the power radiating from them is suffocating, pressing against Kathy's chest like a physical weight. Her breath catches. Her hands tremble. Every instinct screams at her to run, but her legs won't move. Behind the wolves stands a man. No, not just a man. An alpha. Paul Peterson is everything Kathy has heard in whispered stories and more. He's tall, easily 6'5", with broad shoulders that strain against the black tactical vest he wears. His hair, the color of dark honey, is pulled back in a long braid that hangs past his shoulders. His eyes are pale gray, cold as winter ice, and utterly unreadable. A silver wolf insignia is stitched over his heart, and a long black coat billows behind him like a war banner.
He doesn't speak.
He just stares at her, his gaze sharp enough to cut glass. Then his eyes drop to Ash, who has stepped protectively in front of Kathy, his small body tense and his ears pinned back. Paul's expression shifts. Relief crashes into fury, grief collides with triumph, and all of it plays across his face in the span of a single heartbeat. "Riker," he says, his voice low and dangerous. "Come here."
Now.
Ash, Riker, doesn't move. Paul's eyes narrow. His jaw clenches. "I said now." Kathy's heart pounds so hard she thinks it might crack her ribs. She doesn't understand what's happening, but every instinct screams danger. She steps forward, positioning herself between Paul and the pup. "He's not going anywhere," she says, her voice shaking but firm. Paul's gaze snaps to her, and for the first time, he truly sees her. His nostrils flare. His jaw tightens. And then, impossibly, his eyes widen just a fraction. "You," he breathes. "You're the one who's been hiding my son." The words slam into Kathy like a physical blow. "His son? This pup, Ash, is the Alpha King's son?" "I didn't hide anyone," she stammers, her voice cracking. "I found him dying in a blizzard. I saved his life." Paul takes a step forward, and the 5 wolves mirror his movement like extensions of his will. The largest of them, a gray-black male with vicious scars across his muzzle, growls low, the sound vibrating through the ground. "You expect me to believe," Paul says slowly, dangerously, "that a wolfless Omega stumbled upon the heir to the Shadowpine Dominion by accident." The words hit like a slap. Wolfless. Of course he can smell it on her. The absence of a wolf, the hollow space where power should live. The defect that got her exiled in the first place. Kathy's hands curl into fists. "I don't care what you believe. I didn't know who he was. I just knew he needed help." One of the wolves, the scarred male, snarls, his hackles rising. Paul raises a hand, and the wolf goes silent instantly, though his eyes remain locked on Kathy with open hostility. Paul studies her for a long, agonizing moment. Then he speaks, his tone clipped. "If what you say is true, then you've done the kingdom a service. You've bonded with him." Paul's expression darkens. "Riker imprinted on you."
He sees you as a pack.
"As a family." Kathy glances down at Ash, Riker, who presses closer to her leg, his small body trembling. But she realizes with a jolt that he's not afraid of Paul. He's protecting her. Paul notices too. His jaw clenches, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "You're coming with us." "Excuse me?" "You're a liability," Paul says flatly. "Until I know you're not a threat, until I understand how my son ended up in your care, you stay within my sight. Pack your things. We leave in 10 minutes. Kathy's blood runs cold. "I'm not going anywhere with you." Paul's eyes flash silver, his wolf surfacing just beneath the skin. The temperature in the clearing seems to drop 10 degrees. That wasn't a request. Before Kathy can argue, one of the wolves shifts. The transformation is instantaneous, bones cracking, fur receding, until a tall woman with flame-red hair stands where the wolf had been. She's dressed in black tactical gear identical to Paul's, her green eyes sharp and assessing. She steps forward, holding a leather satchel. "My name is Brenna Cole, Beta Commander of the Shadowpine Guard. If you cooperate, this will be easy. If you don't, we'll carry you. Your choice." Kathy looks at Riker, whose golden eyes plead with her. He doesn't want to leave her behind. He doesn't want to be separated. She takes a shaky breath, her heart breaking.
"Fine."
"But I'm bringing my own things." Paul nods once, his expression unreadable. 10 minutes. Not a second more. The journey to the Shadowpine Citadel takes 2 days, and every hour feels like an eternity. Kathy rides on the back of one of the guard wolves, a massive creature named Terran who shifts between human and beast form with unnerving ease. His fur is coarse beneath her fingers, and his movements are smooth and powerful, eating up miles with every stride. Riker stays glued to her side, refusing to leave even when Paul orders him to scout ahead with the others. The young prince whines whenever Kathy tries to shift her weight, as if terrified she'll disappear. Paul rides ahead on his own wolf form, a beast even larger than the others, his black fur shot through with streaks of silver. He doesn't speak to Kathy. Don't even look at her. But she can feel his presence like a storm cloud, heavy and oppressive. Brenna, who alternates between wolf and human form, occasionally drops back to check on Kathy. "You holding up okay?" she asks during one of these check-ins, her tone surprisingly gentle. Kathy nods, though her entire body aches from the ride.
Ai fine.
Brenna snorts. "You're a terrible liar, but I respect the effort." She glances at Riker, who's trotting beside them. "He really does love you, you know. I've never seen him bond with anyone this fast. Not even his father." Kathy's chest tightens. "I didn't ask for this." "No one ever does," Brenna says quietly. "But here we are." The Shadowpine Citadel reveals itself on the second day, rising from the mountain like a monument to power. The fortress is carved into the side of a jagged peak, its black stone walls gleaming like obsidian in the fading light. Watchtowers bristle with guards, their silhouettes sharp against the sky. Banners bearing the silver wolf insignia snap in the wind, the sound like distant thunder. Kathy has never seen anything so imposing, or so beautiful. As they pass through the massive iron gates, wolves in human form line the streets, their eyes tracking Kathy with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Whispers follow her like shadows. "Is that her? The one who had the prince? She's wolfless. How did she survive?" Kathy keeps her head down, her fingers tangled in Riker's fur. The young prince growls softly at anyone who stares too long, his protective instincts flaring. Paul leads them to the main hall, a cavernous room with vaulted ceilings and chandeliers made of antler and iron. He shifts back to human form in the center of the room, his transformation fluid and immediate. He's dressed in black from head to toe, his long braid falling over one shoulder. "Brenna, take her to the guest wing," he orders without looking at Kathy. "Post guards at her door. No one in or out without my permission." "Understood," Brenna says. Kathy's stomach twists. "You're locking me up?" Paul finally looks at her, his gray eyes cold. "I'm keeping you safe. There's a difference." "Safe from what?" "From people who will assume you're a threat," Paul says bluntly. "From those who will question how a wolfless Omega ended up with my son. From yourself, if you're foolish enough to wander these halls without knowing the rules." Kathy's hands curl into fists. "I'm not a prisoner."
No, Paule Gris.
"You're a guest. Act like it." Before Kathy can respond, Riker shifts into his human form, a small boy with messy dark hair and those same piercing gold eyes. He can't be more than 5 years old. He runs to Kathy and wraps his arms around her waist, burying his face in her shirt. "Don't leave me," he whispers. Paul's expression cracks, just for a second. Grief flickers across his face before he locks it down. "Riker, go with Kathy. I'll see you at dinner." Riker nods, but doesn't let go of Kathy's hand. Brenna leads Kathy through a maze of corridors to a suite that's larger than her entire cabin. Marble floors gleam beneath her feet. Velvet curtains frame floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the mountains. A bed piled high with furs and pillows dominates one corner, and a fireplace crackles softly in the other. A servant, a young woman with kind eyes, brings Kathy clean clothes, a simple tunic and leggings, but made of fabric so fine it feels like silk against her skin. "Dinner is at sundown," Brenna says. "You'll be expected in the Great Hall. Don't be late." Kathy nods numbly. That evening, she's escorted to the Great Hall by 2 stoic guards. The room is packed with wolves, council members, warriors, advisors, all of whom turn to stare as she enters. The weight of their gazes is suffocating. Paul sits at the head of a long table, Riker in human form perched beside him in a chair far too big for his small frame. The moment Riker sees Kathy, his face lights up, and he waves enthusiastically. Kathy is directed to a seat halfway down the table, and directly across from her sits the most beautiful woman Kathy has ever seen. Lady Vivian Hale. She has raven black hair that falls in glossy waves past her shoulders, porcelain skin that seems to glow in the candlelight, and emerald eyes that glitter with intelligence and cruelty in equal measure. She wears a gown of deep green silk that hugs her curves, and a silver necklace shaped like a wolf's head rests against her collarbone. She smiles at Kathy, but it doesn't reach her eyes. "So you're the little Omega who saved the prince," Vivian purrs, her voice smooth as honey. "How quaint." Kathy forces a smile, though her hands tremble beneath the table. "I didn't know he was a prince." "Of course you didn't," Vivian says, her smile sharpening. "How fortunate that you were there." "Almost too fortunate, wouldn't you say?" The implication hangs in the air like poison. Paul's gaze cuts to Vivian, his tone edged with warning. "That's enough, Vivian." But the damage is done. Kathy can feel the suspicion radiating from the others at the table. They don't trust her. They think she's playing an angle, manipulating the situation. The meal is torture. Kathy barely touches her food, her stomach churning with anxiety. Riker keeps glancing at her, his small face pinched with worry. And Paul. Paul watches her with an intensity that makes her skin prickle. After dinner, Brenna pulls Kathy aside in the corridor. Her expression is serious. "Word of advice? Watch your back." Vivian doesn't like competition. Kathy blinks. "I'm not competing for anything." Brenna snorts, shaking her head. "You saved the prince. You bonded with him. And the Alpha King can't stop looking at you like you're a puzzle he's trying to solve. Trust me, you're competition whether you want to be or not." Kathy's heart sinks. This is a nightmare. All she wanted was to save a dying pup. Now she's trapped in a political minefield with an Alpha King who doesn't trust her and a rival who wants her gone. What could possibly go wrong? So let me get this straight. Kathy saves a dying pup, feeds him for months, and now she's being held at the Citadel because the pup imprinted on her like she's his actual mom? And to top it off, there's a gorgeous, terrifying she-wolf who already hates her guts? This is peak, no good deed goes unpunished energy. If you want to see Kathy survive royal politics, jealous rivals, and an Alpha King who can't decide if she's a hero or a threat, smash that subscribe button because this is only the beginning. Trust me, it gets so much messier. Over the next week, Kathy learns that navigating the Shadowpine Court is like walking through a forest filled with hidden traps. Every conversation is a test. Every glance carries meaning. Every smile hides teeth. She's given a role as Riker's companion, a polite way of saying babysitter, which means she spends hours playing with the young prince, reading him stories and teaching him basic skills. Riker adores her. He follows her everywhere, chattering about his favorite things: wolves, forests, the stars, and something called the old magic that his tutors keep telling him about. "Do you know about the Silver Flames?" Riker asks one afternoon as they sit in the royal gardens. He's building a tower out of smooth stones while Kathy watches her back against a tree. Kathy shakes her head. "I don't think so." "What are they?" Riker's eyes light up. "They're the most powerful wolves that ever existed. My tutor says they had fur like moonlight and eyes like the sun. They could do magic, real magic, not just shifting. But they all died a long time ago." "That's sad," Kathy murmurs. "Yeah." Riker frowns, placing another stone on his tower. "But my tutor says maybe they're not all gone. Maybe one is still out there, waiting to wake up." Kathy smiles, ruffling his hair. "Maybe." What she doesn't notice is Paul standing at the edge of the garden, watching them. His expression is unreadable, but his eyes linger on Kathy for a long moment before he turns and walks away. The court dinners are brutal. Every night, Kathy is forced to sit across from Vivian, who takes every opportunity to remind everyone that she is Paul's intended mate and future queen. She makes subtle digs about Kathy's lack of status, her wolfless nature, her convenient timing in finding Riker. "Tell me, Kathy," Vivian says one evening, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "What was it like, living alone in the wilderness? It must have been so lonely, so desperate." Kathy meets her gaze evenly. "It was peaceful. No politics.
No fake smiles.
Just honesty." Vivian's smile tightens. "How quaint." Paul, sitting at the head of the table, watches the exchange with narrowed eyes. But he says nothing. One afternoon, Paul finds Kathy in the royal gardens, teaching Riker how to identify edible plants. The young prince is crouched beside her, examining a cluster of wild herbs with intense focus. Paul watches from a distance, his arms crossed over his chest. When Riker runs off to chase a butterfly, Paul approaches. "He's never bonded with anyone this quickly," Paul says quietly, his voice rough. "Not even me."
Kathy doesn't know what to say.
She keeps her eyes on the herbs in her hands. "He's a sweet kid. He trusts you," Paul continues. His gaze is intense, searching.
Why?
Kathy looks up, meeting his eyes for the first time since they arrived at the Citadel. "Maybe because I didn't treat him like a prince. I just treated him like a pup who needed help." Paul is silent for a long moment. The weight of his stare is almost unbearable. Then, so quietly she almost doesn't hear it, he says, "Thank you for saving him." It's the first time he said it. Kathy's throat tightens. She nods, unable to form words. But the moment is shattered when Vivian appears at the garden entrance, her smile venomous. How touching. The wolfless Omega and the Alpha King, bonding over the prince. "Should I be worried, Paul?" Paul's jaw tightens. "Vivian, not now." "Oh, I think now is perfect." Vivian glides forward, her emerald eyes locked on Kathy. "Tell me, dear, do you really think you belong here? Among wolves? Among power?" Kathy stands, brushing dirt from her hands. She meets Vivian's gaze head-on. "I belong wherever Riker needs me." Vivian's eyes flash with something dark and dangerous. "We'll see about that." The first assassination attempt is subtle. It happens 3 days later. A servant delivers tea to Kathy's chambers, a delicate porcelain cup filled with a fragrant blend of lavender and chamomile. The servant, a young man with nervous eyes, sets the tray on the table and leaves without a word. Kathy is exhausted. The constant tension of court life, the endless scrutiny, the weight of Vivian's hostility, it's all catching up to her. She picks up the cup, inhaling the soothing scent, and brings it to her lips. She drinks half the cup before Riker, who had been napping in wolf form by the fireplace, suddenly bolts upright. He lunges across the room and knocks the cup from Kathy's hands with his snout. The porcelain shatters on the marble floor, tea splashing everywhere. "Riker!" Kathy gasps.
What?
But Riker is growling at the spilled tea, his hackles raised, his lips pulled back to reveal sharp puppy teeth. Moments later, the door slams open and Brenna bursts into the room, her face pale. "Don't drink that. Don't touch it." Kathy's blood runs cold.
What?
"Why?" Brenna crouches beside the spill, her nose wrinkling. "Wolfsbane. It's laced with wolfsbane." The words hit Kathy like a punch to the gut. Wolfsbane is lethal to wolves, and to those with dormant wolf blood, it causes excruciating pain, organ failure, and eventually death. Someone just tried to kill her. An investigation is launched immediately. The servant is questioned, and under pressure, he confesses that he was bribed by an unknown benefactor to deliver the tea. He has no idea who hired him. The payment was left in an unmarked envelope with instructions. But Kathy knows. She knows exactly who's behind this.
Vivian.
Paul is furious. He doubles Kathy's security, assigning 2 guards to her chambers at all times. He personally inspects every meal, every drink, every item that enters her rooms. His anger is a living thing, radiating off him in waves. "You should have told me she was threatening you," Paul says that evening, his voice tight. "She never threatened me directly," Kathy replies. "Just implied things." Paul's jaw clenches. "That's enough. I'll handle Vivian. But he doesn't confront her. Not yet. He needs proof, solid, undeniable proof. And Vivian is too clever to leave traces. That night, Kathy can't sleep. She wanders the Citadel halls with Riker padding beside her in wolf form, his presence a small comfort. They end up in the Royal Library, a vast room filled with towering shelves, ancient texts, and maps of territories long forgotten. Kathy loses herself in a book about wolf history, her fingers tracing illustrations of legendary bloodlines. One section catches her eye, a chapter on the Silver Flame wolves. According to the text, the Silver Flames were the apex of wolf evolution, beings of immense power who could manipulate energy, heal wounds, and protect entire packs with their presence alone. But they vanished 300 years ago, wiped out during a war with dark magic practitioners. The last known Silver Flame was a queen named Seraphina, who sacrificed herself to seal away a corrupted alpha bent on enslaving all wolf kind. The book says her bloodline was believed extinct. But the final line makes Kathy's breath catch. It is said that the Silver Flame sleeps in the blood of the forgotten, waiting for the moment of greatest need to awaken. She doesn't notice Paul enter until he speaks. Couldn't sleep? Kathy jumps, nearly dropping the book. You scared me. Paul smirks, the first real smile she's seen from him. It transforms his face, softening the harsh lines. You're safe here. Am I? Kathy gestures to the book. Someone just tried to poison me. Paul's expression darkens. I'll find out who, and when I do, they'll regret it. Why do you care? The question slips out before Kathy can stop it.
I'm nobody.
Just a wolfless Omega who happened to find your son. Paul studies her for a long moment, his gray eyes searching hers. Then he says quietly, because Riker cares. And because I'm starting to think you're more than you appear. Kathy's heart stutters. What does that mean? But before Paul can answer, an alarm blares through the Citadel, a piercing, bone-chilling wail that echoes off the stone walls. Riker's ears perk up. Paul's eyes flash silver. Rogues, he growls. They're attacking the nursery. Chaos erupts. Paul shifts into his massive black wolf form in an instant, his transformation so fast it's almost violent. He bolts toward the nursery wing without a backward glance. Guards flood the corridors, weapons drawn, shouting orders. Kathy runs after Paul, Riker at her heels. Her heart pounds in her chest, adrenaline flooding her veins. She doesn't have a wolf. She doesn't have power. But she has something more important. She has the need to protect. The nursery wing is on fire. Smoke billows from the shattered windows, black and choking. Inside, children scream. Hi, terrified wails that pierce through the chaos. Rogues tear through the room like demons, their fur matted and filthy, their eyes wild with bloodlust.
Kathy doesn't think.
She grabs a fallen spear from a downed guard and charges into the inferno. The heat is unbearable. Smoke stings her eyes, makes her lungs burn. But she pushes forward, following the sound of crying. She finds 3 pups, small children in human form, huddled in a corner behind an overturned crib. Their caretaker lies dead on the floor, her throat torn open. Come here, Kathy shouts, reaching for the children. They scramble toward her, their faces streaked with tears and soot. Kathy scoops 2 of them into her arms and ushers the third to hold onto her shirt. She turns to leave. A rogue lunges from the smoke. Massive. Snarling. Teeth bared. Kathy throws herself in front of the children, raising the spear. But before she can strike, Riker, in his small wolf form, throws himself at the rogue with a ferocious snarl. The rogue is 10 times Riker's size, but the young prince fights like a demon, his jaws locking onto the rogue's throat. The rogue shakes him violently, and Riker goes flying. He hits the wall with a sickening crack. And he doesn't move. Time stops. Kathy sees Riker's small body crumpled on the floor, his chest barely rising. Blood pools beneath him. His eyes are closed. Something inside Kathy shatters. The world goes white. Heat explodes from her chest, a blinding, searing light that consumes everything. Kathy screams, but the sound is drowned out by a roar that doesn't come from her throat. It comes from something deeper, something ancient, something that's been sleeping inside her for her entire life. Her bones crack, her skin burns. Pain tears through every nerve, every cell, as her body reshapes itself. And then, impossibly, she shifts. But not into an ordinary wolf. Her fur is pure silver, shimmering like liquid starlight. Her eyes blaze white gold, bright as the sun. She's massive, twice the size of a normal wolf, her body radiating power so intense that the rogues stumble back in terror, their ears flattening, their tails tucking. Kathy, the silver flame, moves like lightning. She tears through the rogues with a savagery she didn't know she possessed. Her jaws crush bone. Her claws rip through flesh. In seconds, the rogues are dead, their bodies scattered across the burning nursery. Paul, still in wolf form, stands frozen in the doorway, his eyes wide with shock. Kathy shifts back to human form, the transformation reversing as suddenly as it came. She collapses to her knees, her body trembling, and crawls to Riker. She gathers his small, broken body into her arms, tears streaming down her face. "Please wake up," she sobs. "Please, Riker. Please." Riker's eyes flutter open. He whimpers softly and licks her cheek. Relief floods through Kathy so powerfully she nearly faints. Paul shifts back to human form, his expression a mixture of awe and fear. He stares at Kathy like she's a ghost. You're a silver flame." Kathy looks up at him, her vision blurred with tears. "What?" "A bloodline thought extinct for 300 years, Paul says, his voice shaking. "The most powerful wolves ever to exist." He takes a step closer, his eyes locked on hers. "You're not defective, Kathy. You never were. You're legendary." Kathy wakes in the infirmary, her body aching like she's been hit by a freight train. Every muscle screams in protest when she tries to sit up. The room is dim, lit only by a single candle on the bedside table. Paul sits in a chair beside her bed, his elbows resting on his knees, his head in his hands. He looks exhausted, his hair disheveled, his shirt stained with soot and blood. When he hears her move, he looks up. Relief floods his face. "You're awake." Kathy's throat is dry. "Riker." "He's fine," Paul says quickly. "Bruised ribs, but he'll heal. He's asking for you." Kathy's eyes fill with tears. "I thought I lost him." "You saved him," Paul says, his voice rough. "You saved all of them." Kathy looks down at her hands. They're shaking. "I don't understand what happened. I've never had a wolf. I've never been able to shift." "You were dormant," Paul explains. "Your wolf was buried so deep that nothing could wake her until the moment you needed her most." He leans forward, his gray eyes intense. "You're a silver flame, Kathy. That's why your pack couldn't sense your wolf. That's why you seemed powerless. Your bloodline doesn't awaken unless it's triggered by extreme emotional or physical trauma." Kathy's mind reels. "But the silver flames are extinct." "Apparently not," Paul says quietly. Before Kathy can respond, the door opens and Brenna enters, her expression grim. "We found the traitor." Paul stands immediately. "Who?" "Vivian," Brenna says. "She orchestrated the entire attack. She hired the rogues. She gave them access to the Citadel through a hidden tunnel. She wanted Riker dead, so she could secure her position as your mate and future queen." Paul's face goes completely blank. Then, slowly, a terrifying rage builds in his eyes. His hands curl into fists. "Where is she?" "Dungeons," Brenna says. "Awaiting trial." Paul turns to Kathy. "I need to handle this, but I'll be back." Kathy nods, her heart heavy. Hours later, Paul returns. He sits on the edge of Kathy's bed, his shoulders slumped. "It's done," Vivian confessed. "The council voted unanimously to strip her of her title and exile her to the rogue territories." "Is that justice?" Kathy asks quietly. Paul looks at her, his expression weary. "It's mercy. By our laws," she should have been executed. But I won't build a reign on cruelty. Kathy's chest tightens. She reaches for his hand without thinking.
I'm sorry.
Paul's fingers close around hers, warm and strong. Don't be. You saved my son. You exposed a traitor. You. He trails off, his gaze locked on their joined hands. Then, impossibly, Kathy feels it. A golden thread snapping into place between them. It's like a lock clicking shut, a puzzle piece sliding into its perfect position. The bond hums through her chest, warm and undeniable. The mate bond. Paul feels it too. His eyes widen, his breath catching. You're my mate. Kathy's heart races. That's impossible. It's destiny, Paul says, his voice barely above a whisper. Okay, so Kathy went from wolfless defect to legendary Silver Flame, who's also the Alpha King's destined mate, in like 5 minutes flat. Talk about a glow-up. If you want to see how this absolute chaos resolves, because trust me, there's still more drama coming, subscribe now because the finale is going to be insane. The days following the attack are a blur. Vivian is exiled in a quiet ceremony, her belongings stripped, her name erased from the royal records. She leaves the citadel in chains, her emerald eyes burning with hatred as she's escorted to the rogue territories. Kathy watches from the battlements, Riker's small hand in hers. The young prince doesn't say anything, but his grip tightens when Vivian disappears into the forest. She's gone now, Kathy murmurs. You're safe. Riker looks up at her, his gold eyes solemn. I was always safe with you. Kathy's chest tightens. She kneels down and wraps him in a hug. I'm not going anywhere, okay? I promise. Over the following weeks, Kathy learns to control her Silver Flame powers with the help of ancient texts and Paul's patient guidance. She practices shifting in the training grounds, her silver for catching the sunlight like liquid metal. The other wolves watch in awe, whispering among themselves. Paul is always there, coaching her, correcting her stance, teaching her to channel her power without burning herself out. Their bond grows stronger with each passing day, a connection that goes beyond words, beyond touch. She can feel his emotions like they're her own, his pride when she masters a new skill, his protectiveness when she pushes herself too hard, his quiet joy when she laughs at one of Riker's terrible jokes. One evening, Paul takes Kathy to the Citadel's highest tower. The view is breathtaking, mountains stretching to the horizon, forests glowing in the twilight, the sky painted in shades of gold and rose. I know this isn't what you wanted, Paul says quietly, his hands resting on the stone railing. Being thrust into this world, into politics and power and responsibility. Kathy stands beside him, the wind whipping through her hair.
No.
It's not what I wanted. Paul's expression falls, just slightly. But Kathy continues, turning to face him. It's what I choose. I choose to stay. Not because you're the Alpha King. Not because of duty or obligation. She takes his hand, lacing her fingers through his. Because I chose you. And Riker. And this life we're building. Paul's eyes soften. He lifts her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. You're the strongest person I've ever met. Kathy laughs, the sound almost bitter. I'm the girl everyone rejected. You're the woman who saved my son, Paul corrects. The woman who stood against rogues without a wolf of her own. The woman who turned out to be the most powerful being in the kingdom. He cups her face in his hands, his gray eyes searching hers. You're everything, Kathy Jarrett. And I'm asking you to stay. As my mate. As Riker's mother. As my queen. Kathy's breath catches. Paul. I know it's fast, he says quickly. I know this is insane. But the mate bond doesn't lie. And neither do I. His voice drops to a whisper. I love you. Tears prick at Kathy's eyes. I love you too. Paul kisses her then, slow and deep, and the world falls away. There's only him, only this moment, only the promise of something beautiful rising from the ashes of everything that tried to break them. The coronation is held under a full moon. The entire kingdom gathers in the Citadel's great courtyard, wolves in both human and beast form filling every available space. Kathy wears a gown of silver and white, the fabric shimmering like starlight. A crown of woven moonflowers and wolfsbane rests on her head, delicate and deadly in equal measure. Paul stands beside her, dressed in black and silver, his hand warm in hers. Riker, in his human form, stands on her other side, his small chest puffed out with pride. The High Priestess, a woman with silver hair and ancient eyes, steps forward. She raises her hands, and the crowd falls silent. We gather tonight to witness a union blessed by the moon goddess herself, the priestess intones. Kathy Jarrett, once cast out and forgotten, has proven herself worthy of the highest honor. She saved the prince. She exposed treachery. And she awakened a power thought lost to time. The priestess turns to Kathy, her gaze piercing. Do you accept the crown? Do you vow to protect this kingdom, to lead with wisdom and strength, to be the shield and the sword when darkness rises? Kathy's voice is steady.
Ida.
Then kneel. Kathy kneels. The priestess places a second crown, this one made of silver and embedded with moonstones, on her head. The weight settles on her brow, heavy with meaning. Rise, Queen Kathy Peterson, the silver flame, protector of the Shadowpine Dominion.
Kathy stands.
The crowd erupts and howls, thousands of wolves lifting their voices to the moon in celebration. Paul pulls her close, his lips brushing her ear. You're mine now, forever. Kathy smiles, her heart full. And you're mine. Riker shifts into his wolf form and howls, the sound pure and joyful. Kathy laughs, tears streaming down her face, and joins him, her voice harmonizing with his, a song of survival and triumph and love. The weeks following the coronation are a whirlwind. Kathy learns the intricacies of ruling, mediating disputes, managing resources, building alliances with neighboring territories. It's exhausting, but Paul is always by her side, guiding her, supporting her. Riker thrives. He grows stronger, braver, more confident with each passing day. He calls Kathy Mama now, the word slipping out naturally one morning over breakfast. Kathy cried. Paul pretended not to notice, but she saw the way his eyes glistened. One afternoon, a messenger arrives from the Pine Haven territories, Kathy's former pack. Alpha Garrett Thorne requests an audience with a new queen. Kathy's stomach twists, but she agrees. Garrett arrives with a small entourage, his expression carefully neutral. He's older than Kathy remembers, his hair streaked with gray, his shoulders stooped. When he sees her, dressed in royal finery, a crown on her head, power radiating from her like heat, he stops mid-step. Kathy, he breathes. Alpha Thorne, Kathy says coolly. What brings you to the Shadowpine Citadel? Garrett shifts uncomfortably. I came to apologize. For what we did. For casting you out. We were wrong. Kathy's jaw tightens. You were more than wrong. You left me to die. I know, Garrett says quietly. And I've regretted it every day since. Paul, standing beside Kathy's throne, watches the exchange with narrowed eyes. His hand rests on the hilt of his blade, a silent warning.
Kathy takes a breath.
I won't pretend your apology erases what happened. It doesn't. But I also won't carry that hatred anymore. It's too heavy. She meets Garrett's gaze. You're forgiven. But you're not welcome here again. Go home, Alpha Thorne. And do better by your people.
Garrett bows deeply.
Thank you, my queen. As he leaves, Paul leans down and whispers, You're a better person than I am. I would have thrown him in the dungeons. Kathy smirks. I'm still considering it. That night, Kathy stands on the balcony of her chambers, looking out over the kingdom. Paul wraps his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Do you ever regret it? He asks quietly. Leaving your old life behind? Kathy leans into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her back.
No.
That life was built on shame and rejection. This one is built on choice. On love. Paul kisses her temple. I'm glad you chose us. I'm glad you let me, Kathy whispers. Riker appears in the doorway, clutching a stuffed wolf toy. Can't sleep? Kathy laughs and holds out her hand. Come here, sweetheart. Riker runs to them, and Paul scoops him up, settling the young prince between them. The three of them stand there, wrapped in each other's warmth, watching the stars emerge one by one. Kathy thinks about the girl she used to be, broken, forgotten, invisible. And she thinks about the woman she's become, powerful, loved, unbreakable. She was never defective. She was just waiting for the right moment to ignite. And now, the silver flame burns brighter than ever.